Trump was a frequent passenger on Epstein's plane, known as the Lolita Express, and Epstein told author Michael Wolff the first time he slept with Melania was on my plane.
And that is how I met your mother, Baron. Any questions? Any? I'll tell you, next time you're on a flight with a crying baby, just think about how much worse it could be. What I'm saying is, isn't it great that we finally have a president whose brain works perfectly?
Imagine a sleek, private jet gleaming under the artificial lights of a secluded tarmac as dusk begins to settle. This isn't just any aircraft, it's a Boeing 727, a symbol of unparalleled wealth and access, forever branded with a chilling moniker. The Lolita Express, the name itself sends a shiver down the spine, a stark whisper of the horrific activities allegedly conducted within its luxurious confines. It became an airborne vessel of secrets, ferrying powerful figures across continents, shrouded in an aura of illicit dealings and unspeakable exploitation. Among the names frequently appearing on the flight logs of this infamous aircraft was that of Donald Trump. Records indicate that he was a documented passenger on at least 7 occasions. These weren't fleeting coincidences. These were multiple journeys, connecting the opulent estates of Palm Beach to the towering penthouses of New York City, and even to the political heart of Washington, D.C., while the logs don't place him on flights directly to Jeffrey Epstein's notorious private island, Little St. James. The sheer frequency of his travels on the Lolita Express raises immediate and unsettling questions about the nature and depth of his relationship with Epstein. Consider this. A man who would later become the President of the United States repeatedly chose to travel on a plane inextricably linked to allegations of the most heinous crimes. These weren't anonymous figures on a commercial airline. These were individuals operating in the rarefied air of extreme privilege, their paths intersecting within a context that now feels deeply tainted. The very act of repeatedly boarding that aircraft casts a long shadow, a tangible link to a world that would eventually be exposed for its profound darkness. What these early revelations underscore is that associations matter. The company we keep, the choices we make about who we spend our time with and how we travel, can leave indelible marks on our reputations and raise legitimate questions about our judgment and character. As this story unfolds, the frequent presence of Donald Trump on the Lolita Express serves as an initial, compelling piece of a much larger and far more disturbing puzzle. It's easy to forget, with all the headlines swirling today, just how openly Donald Trump once spoke about Jeffrey Epstein. Back in 2002, before the full horror of Epstein's crimes came to light, Trump sat down with New York Magazine for what seemed like a casual chat. But within that conversation lay a quote that would haunt him for years, a chilling glimpse into a past association he'd later desperately tried to erase. Trump didn't just mention Epstein, he praised him. He called him a terrific guy and declared he was a lot of fun to be with. Then came the line that truly made people shudder, a direct quote from Trump himself. It is even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. Imagine that. These weren't hushed whispers or anonymous sources. These were Donald Trump's own words, published for the world to see. At the time, perhaps it was meant to sound like a playful, if slightly crude, boast between powerful men. But hindsight is a powerful lens, and through it, those words now echo with a deeply unsettling resonance. It's a stark reminder that what seems innocuous or even boastful in one moment can become a damning indictment later, especially when the true nature of a relationship is revealed. That 2002 interview stands as a public record, a snapshot of a connection that ran deeper than many would later admit. But their ties weren't just about friendly words in a magazine, they were cemented by shared social circles and even more personal claims. The public record, with its flight logs and magazine quotes, only scratches the surface of the unsettling connections between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. The true depth of their personal ties becomes even more disturbing when you consider the claims that emerged later, painting a picture of a relationship far more intimate and intertwined than just casual acquaintances. Perhaps one of the most shocking and unsettling claims came from Epstein himself. According to author Michael Wolff, while Wolff was researching his book Fire and Fury in 2017, Epstein allegedly boasted that the first time he slept with Melania was on my plane. Now it's crucial to understand this was Epstein's unsubstantiated claim, one that Melania's representatives and the Trump campaign have vehemently dismissed as false and politically motivated. Yet the very existence of such a claim, even if unproven, casts a long, uncomfortable shadow, especially given Epstein's notorious reputation. But beyond such inflammatory assertions, the evidence strongly suggests a sustained and remarkably close bond. Jeffrey Epstein reportedly referred to Donald Trump as his best friend for 10 years. Think about that. A decade-long friendship with one of the most notoriously private, yet globally connected figures. It wasn't just idle talk, either. Epstein's infamous little black book, a trove of contacts from the powerful elite, contained an astounding 14 different phone numbers for Donald Trump and his representatives. 14 separate ways to reach him. For most of us, that's more contact information than we have for our entire extended family, or even our emergency contacts for school. It highlights a level of accessibility and closeness that goes far beyond a mere acquaintance. Their shared world extended to their residences as well. They were neighbors in Palm Beach, a hub for the wealthy and influential. Epstein was even a member of Trump's exclusive Mar-a-Lago club at one point. Photos from the 1990s show them together at various social events and parties, often with Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's then-girlfriend and later convicted accomplice, by their side. These aren't just isolated snapshots. They illustrate a consistent presence in each other's lives. What this all reminds us is that in the world of the powerful, personal connections often run deeper and more intricately than the public perceives. What might start as a simple networking relationship can evolve into something far more entangled, creating a web of shared experiences and, sometimes, shared secrets. And as we'll see, these deep personal ties would make it incredibly difficult for Trump to distance himself when the full scope of Epstein's depravity finally came to light. For a man known for his constant presence in the media, his rapid tweets, and his willingness to offer an opinion on just about everything, Donald Trump's initial response to the resurfacing Epstein allegations was unusual. It was a silence that spoke volumes, a stark contrast to his typically bombastic approach when faced with criticism or controversy. Imagine a normally erupting volcano suddenly going dormant. The change is noticeable, and it makes you wonder what's brewing beneath the surface. That's precisely the kind of unease that settled in as Trump, the master of the news cycle, seemed to deliberately avoid the topic that was dominating headlines. This wasn't just a passing silence. It stretched on, even as former allies and commentators questioned his past relationship with Epstein. When Trump did finally address the issue, his statements were often vague, meandering, and at times even contradictory. Take, for example, his assertion that Epstein was never a big factor in his life. This claim seemed to directly contradict his earlier enthusiastic praise of Epstein as a terrific guy and a longtime friend. It's like a friend suddenly claiming they barely knew someone they'd been photographed with countless times over the years. The inconsistency was glaring and left many feeling that something wasn't quite right. Adding to this perplexing picture was a report about an interview Trump gave regarding the Epstein story. According to news outlets, his answer was quietly trimmed from the final broadcast on Fox News, a network generally considered sympathetic to him. No statement, no explanation was offered for this edit. This selective editing felt particularly significant, especially when you recall how quick Trump has been to accuse other media outlets of fake news and manipulation when he felt unfairly portrayed. It highlights a crucial point. When the story hits close to home, the standards for media coverage can sometimes seem to shift. The lesson in this period of relative silence and selective editing is a powerful one. Inconsistency and evasion, in the face of serious questions, often breed more suspicion than outright denial. When the narrative doesn't hold together, and when attempts are made to quietly erase inconvenient truths, it can create a storm of contradictions that ultimately undermines credibility. And as this storm of questions and inconsistencies swirled, pressure continued to build, not just from the media and the public, but from within Trump's own sphere of influence. Just when it seemed like Donald Trump might be able to ride out the renewed scrutiny, a new unexpected pressure point emerged, and it came from a figure equally accustomed to dominating headlines: Elon Musk. If Trump's silence was one anomaly, Musk's direct challenge was a full-blown earthquake. One day, out of the blue, Musk dropped a tweet that sent shockwaves through the political landscape. Imagine the scene: millions of eyes glued to their screens, scrolling through social media, when suddenly this pops up: time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they've not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT. It was audacious, it was direct, and it was aimed squarely at the former and now current president. For someone who thrives on attention and controversy, Trump's reaction, or rather, his lack thereof, was deafening. While the internet lit up, a curious silence fell over Trump's typically boisterous social media accounts. But Musk's tweet wasn't the only pressure. What followed was an even more fascinating development: a genuine vocal revolt within Trump's own base. For years, the MAGA faithful had been fiercely loyal, quick to defend him against any perceived attack. Yet, on the Epstein issue, a significant number of his supporters began to break ranks. They weren't just asking questions, they were demanding answers, often with a surprising intensity. You'd hear them on podcasts, on conservative news channels, and in online forums, calling for full transparency. Some even went as far as suggesting a special counsel be appointed to investigate, with figures like Congressman Matt Gaetz, a staunch Trump ally, ironically floated as a potential leader for an investigation into underage sex trafficking. The sheer absurdity of that suggestion, given Gaetz's own past controversies, only highlighted the desperate desire for answers. This internal rebellion proved to be a bridge too far for Trump. In a furious online post, he lashed out at his past, supporters who had bought into this hook, line, and sinker. He declared, with seething resentment, that he didn't want their support anymore if they dared to even talk about the Epstein scandal. It was an astonishing moment of self-sabotage, a leader turning on his most ardent followers. It underscored a painful lesson: even the most devoted loyalty has its limits, especially when a fundamental demand for truth clashes with a leader's desire for silence. When a movement starts to fracture from within, it often signals a deeper vulnerability, and these mounting internal pressures, combined with the external calls for transparency, would soon bring the spotlight to a darker, more unsettling aspect of the Epstein saga: the very circumstances surrounding his death. After all the mounting pressure, the public demands, and even the internal revolt from his own base, Donald Trump offered a response to the Epstein case that left many scratching their heads. He casually dismissed the entire saga, calling it pretty boring stuff and claiming it was sordid. It was a statement so jarringly out of sync with the gravity of the allegations that it almost defied belief. How could a global pedophile sex ring, involving some of the world's most powerful people, ever be considered boring? But the story of Jeffrey Epstein's death is anything but boring. In fact, it's riddled with perplexing inconsistencies that continue to fuel intense public skepticism. The official ruling was suicide by hanging, but from the moment the news broke, a cloud of doubt enveloped the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York. One of the most disturbing pieces of evidence to emerge was the prison surveillance video. From the night Epstein died, this footage, presented as raw and unedited, was supposed to put all questions to rest. Yet, when independent video forensics experts and journalists at Wired analyzed the metadata, they discovered something truly astonishing. The video was not raw. It had been modified, likely using the professional editing software Adobe Premiere Pro. It wasn't a single continuous stream. It was assembled from at least 2 source clips, saved multiple times, and then uploaded. And then there was the most baffling detail of all: a missing minute. The timeline in the video mysteriously jumped from 11:58 p.m. to 12 a.m., right over the critical final minute before Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell. No explanation was ever provided for this missing segment, nor was an uncut, raw version ever released. It was as if the most crucial moment simply vanished into thin air. This kind of official evidence feels less like transparency and more like a deliberate obfuscation. It's a powerful reminder that when institutions tasked with upholding justice present manipulated or incomplete information, it doesn't resolve doubts. It cultivates deep suspicion. The lesson here is clear. Trust is built on transparency, and when that trust is broken, even the simplest explanation can become the subject of endless scrutiny and conspiracy. The questions surrounding Epstein's death continued to loom large, leading many to wonder if there were larger forces at play, perhaps even figures who wanted to ensure certain secrets remained buried with him. And speaking of secrets, another key player in Epstein's dark world still had many to tell, or perhaps was being prevented from telling them. In the twisted saga of Jeffrey Epstein, there was always one figure who seemed to hold many of the darkest secrets: Ghislaine Maxwell. As Epstein's longtime confidant, alleged madam, and former girlfriend, she was not just a tangential player. She was, for all intents and purposes, the architect of his vile network, deeply involved in the recruitment and abuse of underage girls. Eventually, justice caught up to her, and she was convicted on 5 counts of sex trafficking, now serving a 20-year sentence in a New York prison. But even after her conviction, Maxwell remained a pivotal figure, a potential linchpin to unlocking more truths about Epstein's powerful associates. And here's where Donald Trump re-enters the picture in a particularly intriguing way. Reports surfaced that Trump had, at one point, floated the idea of pardoning Maxwell. Now, this wasn't an act of compassion or a belief in her innocence. Quite the opposite. The prevailing theory was that Trump was motivated by fear of what Maxwell might say if she felt cornered or betrayed. If she were pardoned, perhaps her silence could be ensured, or her testimony controlled. Yet in a bizarre twist of fate, Trump's stance seemed to shift again. Instead of advocating for her release, he eventually appeared to want her to remain in prison. The likely reason, the very same fear. If she's behind bars, potentially isolated and with legal avenues exhausted, her ability to speak out publicly and drop further bombshells might be curtailed. It's a cynical calculation, but one that highlights the immense leverage Maxwell theoretically holds. The drama doesn't stop there. Maxwell's own family has publicly claimed that their sister Ghislaine did not receive a fair trial, and they are actively pursuing an appeal to the Supreme Court. This family plea, combined with reports that Republicans are currently blocking her from testifying before Congress, paints a very concerning picture. Why the resistance to her testimony? What, or who, are they afraid she might reveal on the congressional record? These actions suggest a concerted effort to keep her silent, raising profound questions about who might be implicated if she were ever to speak freely. It's a classic, chilling pattern. When powerful individuals and political factions seem determined to silence someone, it's rarely about protecting the innocent. It's almost always about preventing uncomfortable truths from seeing the light of day. This intricate dance of fear, power, and attempted suppression underscores that Ghislaine Maxwell, even from behind prison walls, remains a key to understanding the full scope of Epstein's world and the powerful figures who may have benefited from it or are desperately trying to hide their involvement. But so many powerful people seemingly desperate to control the narrative, the public's appetite for clarity only intensified. They wanted answers, and they weren't afraid to demand them directly. Through all the evasions, the contradictions, and the shifting narratives, one clear, insistent demand began to cut through the noise. Release the list. It wasn't just a political slogan. It became a rallying cry, from cable news pundits to online commentators, and even from the very core of Donald Trump's own base. The message was unmistakable. The public wanted full transparency regarding the Epstein files. Think of it like this. When there's a fire in a building, and the authorities keep telling you it's under control, while smoke continues to billow out, people don't just accept it. They want to see the firefighters, they want to know what caused it, and they certainly want to see what's left behind. The Epstein case, with its powerful connections and disturbing allegations, felt exactly like that. The public sensed there was more to uncover, more powerful figures potentially implicated, and they were not going to simply move on as some suggested. Figures like Sunny Hostin on national television openly challenged the idea of secrecy. She pointedly laid out the publicly known fact that Donald Trump's name appeared on Epstein's flight logs at least 7 times. Her question was direct, logical, and echoed by millions. If Trump was so confident in his innocence, why not simply release the 7 times on the flight log? Why not just put all the information out there and let the public decide? It's a fair question, and one that highlights a universal truth. When innocent people are accused, their first instinct is usually to clear their name by providing all available evidence. They don't typically need multiple exit doors or elaborate explanations for why documents can't be shown. The more resistance to transparency, the more suspicion it breeds. For many, the continued silence, the edited videos, and the vague responses only solidified a nagging feeling that something significant was being hidden. The boring narrative simply didn't hold up against the weight of public curiosity and concern. This unwavering demand for accountability, cutting across political lines, showed that the Epstein controversy was far more than just a fleeting news cycle. It had become a persistent, gnawing question in the national consciousness, pushing for a truth that seemed to elude grasp. And as the pressure mounted, even the most steadfast positions sometimes, unexpectedly, began to yield. After all the furious denials, the attacks on his own supporters, and the consistent stonewalling, a remarkable shift occurred. It was subtle, almost easy to miss amidst the daily flurry of political news, but it was significant. When pressed directly about the Epstein documents, Donald Trump, the man who had dismissed the entire saga as boring, suddenly opened a crack in the door. Imagine a seasoned poker player, holding their cards close, bluffing and blustering through several rounds. Then, unexpectedly, they lay down a single card, just enough to hint at a change in strategy. That's what it felt like when Trump, in a quiet moment, stated, "Whatever is credible, Shipam Bondi can release. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release." This wasn't the defiant, "nothing to see here" we had come to expect. This was a concession, however small, however conditional. Why this sudden change of heart? Was it a genuine shift in his position? A recognition of overwhelming public pressure? Or was it a calculated move, a form of damage control designed to pacify a restless base and shift responsibility? It speaks to a lesson often learned by those in the public eye. While you can try to control the narrative, you can't always control the story itself, especially when the facts are demanding to be seen. It's like a reality show where the star has written the script for years, only to find the plot taking an unexpected, darker turn that they can no longer fully manage. They might try to tease the next episode, offer a glimpse of what's to come, but the underlying truth is now calling the shots. This unexpected opening, however narrow, confirmed one thing: the Epstein controversy was far from over. It suggested that perhaps, just perhaps, the full extent of this sprawling, uncomfortable story would eventually demand its own airtime, no matter who wanted to keep it hidden. And that brings us to the ultimate question that still hangs in the air. So, we've journeyed through the unsettling connections, the shifting narratives, and the relentless demands for answers surrounding Donald Trump and the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. What began as whispers of flight logs and resurfaced quotes has unraveled into a tangled web of contradictions, public denials, deeply personal ties, and mounting pressure for transparency. The boring case, as Trump once called it, has proven to be anything but. It's clear that the Epstein controversy is no longer just a footnote in history. It has exploded into a full-blown political wildfire. Every evasive answer, Every edited video, every unexplained silence only serves to fan the flames of public suspicion. We've seen a man known for his bluster and outspokenness suddenly go quiet, only to lash out at his most loyal supporters when they dared to demand the truth. We've witnessed the complex dance of power and fear around figures like Ghislaine Maxwell, with questions lingering about who is being protected and why. This entire saga reminds us of a powerful, undeniable truth. Secrets, especially dark ones involving the powerful, rarely stay buried forever. It's like trying to erase a permanent marker with a regular eraser. The harder you press, the more you just spread the smudge, drawing even more attention to what you're trying to hide. In the end, the truth, in its own stubborn way, has a habit of demanding its spotlight, no matter how inconvenient or damaging it may be. The lingering question, for everyone watching, is what truly drives this ongoing drama. Is it about justice for the victims, a desperate quest for accountability from those who enabled Epstein's horrific crimes? Is it about image control, a frantic effort by powerful figures to protect their reputations and legacies from being tainted by association? Or, for some, is it simply about political survival, navigating a treacherous landscape where past indiscretions could spell the end of a career? The answers remain partially hidden, but the conversation is far from over. The spotlight, on the Epstein files, and every name within them, continues to burn brightly. And as new information inevitably emerges, the world will be watching, waiting for the truth to fully unfold. As we've explored, the narrative connecting Donald Trump to Jeffrey Epstein is a complex tapestry woven with unsettling details. From the shadowy flights of the Lolita Express and Trump's own glowing praise of Epstein in 2002, to the shocking claims about Melania Trump and the undeniable closeness revealed by Epstein's infamous Little Black Book, we've seen a relationship far deeper than mere acquaintance. The story then plunges into the bewildering silence from Trump's camp, even as Elon Musk dropped a big bomb and segments of his own MAGA base demanded answers. The mysterious circumstances surrounding Epstein's death, particularly the missing minute in the surveillance footage, only intensified the call for transparency. Finally, the role of Ghislaine Maxwell, the attempts to control her testimony, and Trump's own shifting stance on releasing documents, all point to an ongoing struggle between exposure and suppression. This isn't just about sensational headlines. It's a powerful reminder that truth has an undeniable gravity, no matter how powerful the individuals involved, or how meticulously secrets are guarded. The pursuit of justice and accountability for victims will always find a way to push for clarity. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of the most perplexing and persistent stories of our time. If you found this exploration informative and thought-provoking, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. For more in-depth analysis, we'll continue to follow this story as it unfolds. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.